All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is the NBA Tournament Strategy Show. For those of you that don't know, I'm Bob226, aka Josiah. And on this show, we look at last night's slate, see what went well, what might not have gone as well. And then, of course, on this show, we go game by game, talk about guys we like, guys we might not like as much. But then on the pre-lock show at 5:30 p.m., we implement what we're doing on the show. And that's for VIP members only. Feel free to click the link in the description if you're interested. You can also feel free to use the promo code BOB if you want a 10% discount. So let's jump into it, guys. Let's look at last night. Last night was a good night. We had a lot of DFS Army members crush too, which was great to see. Crunching numbers, thanking Upper Slad. Upper Slad's another DFS Army coach here. You can always talk to him in the Discord. Sneaky Sleeper had a good night, and there were a lot of others as well that I just didn't have time to add to this. So anyway, this was the winning nuts lineup from last night. Jordan Goodwin was a guy that a lot of us had as a core play, so that wasn't really a surprise. Skylar Mays, looking back, Skylar Mays made a lot of sense. I took a shot on Sharp instead of Mays, but Mays was cheaper and saw just as much run as Sharp. It made sense. Should have done that. Sadiq Bey was a core play. Pascal Siakam was a leverage play. Joel Embiid took a shot on Harden instead of Embiid because Harden was a little bit cheaper. Should have chose Embiid here. Obviously, now looking back, hindsight's always 2020. Kendrick Nunn was a core play. Domination Station came through clutch for that one. Draymond Green, we're over the field on. We saw it on the pre-lock show yesterday that we had a lot of exposure to Draymond. I did have a 40% exposure maximum on him, so I only had up to 40%. I think I ended up being around like 20, 30%. DeAndre Ayton was a leverage play, so that panned out. Pretty much everything went well for me outside of the Kevin Durant play, because that did not end up going very well. Would have been a great night if he could have came through, but it was still good, so can't complain too much. What's up, Dave? Good to see you, man. Appreciate you so much. If you guys could hit the like, share, and subscribe button, we always appreciate the support, and it's the end of the season. You know, no one's watching really, so it helps when you guys press the like button for sure. And subscribe too. There's still a lot of great content on the channel. All right, guys, let's jump into these games. Yesterday was good, but let's make today better. Not a crazy amount of games, like pretty appropriate, which is nice after yesterday's craziness. First up, we have the Knicks against the Pacers. So pretty big news in this Knicks game, which thankfully is at lock, is RJ Barrett being questionable. We already know Jalen Brunson will not be playing tonight, so that automatically makes guys like Quickly and Grimes much more viable. RJ Barrett being questionable, though, would make, if he ends up being out, it would make Quickly, Grimes close to almost must plays in a pretty soft matchup against the Pacers. They're priced up, so they're not the extreme value they were previously, but still pretty strong plays in this spot. Obi Toppin would also see a boost if RJ Barrett ended up getting ruled out, but just in general, a lot of viable plays on this team here. And of course, Julius Randle's been out for a while, so a lot of things to put into consideration. If RJ Barrett plays, he's a very, very viable starter here in a soft matchup without Randle, without Brunson. RJ Barrett's in a good spot. So looking forward to getting that news. I'm fine with it either way because it's just giving me more options on this slate. Mitchell Robinson has been in good form. His price is going up a little bit, so he's not the same great play he was earlier, like a week or so ago, when he was like 4,300. But he's still in a really soft matchup against the Pacers, and so for that reason alone, he's on my radar. I do like him a bit more if RJ Barrett doesn't play, but I like the spot for him kind of either way. Next up, we have the Pacers, who have been transitioning a little bit here this season. Tyrese Halliburton's out. Miles Turner is questionable. We've seen McConnell and Hield not play as many minutes here lately. They've been coming off the bench, which really limits their upside. If they were starting, they become much more viable plays. On the other hand, though, we've seen guys like Mathurin and Nimbard and Nesmith all see a bit of a boost in these spots without Halliburton. The matchup's not my favorite, but also the Knicks are missing quite a few guys, so the matchup looks tougher on paper than it will be. Miles Turner being questionable is what's really going to dictate my interest in the team tonight. If he's out, then that's a boost for me when it comes to Mathurin and Noor. Of course, Isaiah Jackson and who am I thinking about? Of course, Jaren Jackson would be much more viable, or Isaiah Jackson would be much more viable as well if we get the news that Miles Turner is going to be out. All right, moving on to the Nets. Not a team I'm interested in very much outside of just their low ownership. I'll take a shot on Dinwiddie or Bridges here just because they're low owned. I haven't made a full decision on which one yet, but just because they are healthy and that's just automatically, and there's plenty of teams that aren't going to be healthy tonight, it just makes me less interested in the Nets here tonight, unfortunately. Matchup's pretty average too. There's just not a lot going for them. Lowest total on the slate, largest spread. It's just pretty, I don't like to say easy game to avoid, but pretty easy game to not have to like hyper focus on. Next up for the Pistons, we know what the deal is with these Pistons. Like they have been missing guys for a while now. Kind of like we've been saying, everyone's priced pretty appropriately. It does look like the domination station likes James Wiseman and Jalen Duren here a good bit. So we'll see on the pre-lock show how much exposure we actually end up getting to these guys tonight. But if the domination station likes them, I'm not going to like X them out of my player pool or anything, but they don't really stand out for me as much in this spot, but we'll see. And then of course, Jaden Ivey's viable, but again, like this team just isn't going to stand out for me too much on this slate, unfortunately. Just not my favorite game environment. Now, the Raptors against the Celtics is a different story. The spread is low. I mean, the total's low, but the spread is close, which for me means it should be a pretty close game and a game where the players should play their full allotment of minutes. From an injury news standpoint, we care a good bit when it comes to this game too. Gary Trent Jr. is listed as TBD. Otto Porter's out. For the Raptors, Gary Trent Jr., if he doesn't play, that's a nice boost to guys like Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet, those kind of guys. The rest of the guys don't have much of an impact here. Pascal Siakam, always more willing to play him in these spots where he's relatively low owned. Worked out well for us last time around. Sim Model still likes him here. That's enough for him to be a leverage play for me tonight. So as long as nothing crazy happens on this slate, that's what he'll be. Fred VanVleet, almost the exact same story. More than likely will be over the field on him, hoping this game stays close. It's almost a definite thing if Gary Trent Jr. ends up getting ruled out. Same story with Scotty Barnes. Sim Model likes them both, and I like them too. Sim Model does like Fred VanVleet a bit more than Scotty Barnes, so I feel pretty much the exact same way. Even from a projection standpoint, same thing too. So that makes sense. Jakob Poeltl at 7K. I know he disappointed a lot of people last time around. I'm willing to go back to him here, especially if Al Horford misses this game. Robert Williams will play tonight, and so that's still a pretty tough matchup, but there will be a rotation there because Robert Williams still won't see a ton of run, even with Al Horford out. So I'm not super concerned about like Blake Griffin and the other guys who will play the 5 spot for them. So Jakob Poeltl, definitely a viable play. I wish he was a little bit lower owned, but he's also on my radar. Per usual, I like the Raptors. I think you guys know that at this point. I like the Raptors. Not like they're not a team I usually go for, but from like a DFS standpoint, I'm usually a fan. What's up, Michael Ortiz? Good to see you. Good morning. Hope all things are going well in your life. Hope you had a good night last night too. For the Celtics, we have Jaylen Brown listed as TBD. We know how impactful that is, as we saw last night. Marcus Smart, TBD. That's pretty impactful too. Robert Williams will play. He did not play yesterday. Al Horford is unlikely to play. So with Robert Williams kind of coming back, as Al Horford is now not playing tonight, not too much matters for me there. You can take your shot on Robert Williams, but he's just not playing enough for me to be interested. If he was to start tonight, I would be slightly more interested. I feel like I say that a lot. I feel like it's slightly more likely we might get a surprise start out of him here. If he starts, I will force exposure to him. If not, I don't feel like it's necessary. If Brown's out, go right back to White. If Smart's out, more interested in Brogdon. If we get a situation where Robert Williams and Marcus Smart are both out and Brown, I have a little bit of interest in Grant Williams here if all three were out. Well, sorry, not Williams, but I meant like Brown, Smart, and Al Horford. If all three are out, I'm more interested in taking a shot on Grant Williams. I don't have the data to really back it up, but I just feel like he would be a little bit sneaky here if no one else is going to play him. But we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. We will know on the pre-lock show. Last night we played a lot of these Wizards and it went pretty well. Let's see. We're not expecting Bradley Beal to play tonight. We're not expecting Kyle Kuzma to play tonight. Kristaps Porzingis is listed as TBD. Denny Avdija is still out. Monty Morris is TBD. Delon Wright is listed as TBD. We have to get this injury news before we really know what's going to happen on this slate. If all of the guys that were out last night are out again tonight, I'm totally fine loading back up with Jordan Goodwin, loading back up on Kendrick Nunn, playing Johnny Davis again. Kispert play didn't really work out last night. I need to look and see what happened there. Gafford, these guys are priced up, and so they just have to do more to kind of exceed value. But I just think the Wizards are definitely viable if the guys that are out, the guys who were out yesterday are out again. So yeah, Wizards tonight for sure are still a fine team to play if we get the right injury news. And they're not expensive, and so they help make a lot work tonight. And so I'm hoping that those guys don't randomly decide to play today. They shouldn't. For the Hawks, I know Murray and crew disappointed some guys yesterday. The Bogdanovich leverage call worked out pretty well for us yesterday. We had plenty of Sadiq Bey exposure. If Trae Young, as of right now, is listed as TBD, DeAndre Hunter is also listed as TBD. I think most people are expecting them to play. If they do play tonight, I don't have a ton of interest in this team. I normally don't. But the Domination Station wants to mix them in. That's fine. If Trae Young if Trae Young's out, then I have a bit more interest. I'm totally fine going back to Murray. I will once again go over the field on Bogdanovich and play plenty of Sadiq Bey. If Hunter's out, that doesn't move as much for me personally. I would just let the Domination Station do its thing. I wouldn't force exposure to anyone unless they just look like they were significantly underowned, which I don't think will be the case. For the Bulls, let's look at something. I know Vucevic did not come through for us yesterday, which was disappointing. I think that was yesterday. I don't really remember. But for the Bulls tonight, let's see. They are looking like they're going to be pretty healthy. Alex Caruso's listed as TBD. But again, pretty much everyone else is healthy. And per usual, Nikola Vucevic's really the only guy that's on my radar. The matchup against the Bucks isn't my favorite for anyone on this team, but Vucevic has shown he can have ceiling in tough matchups, and he's not really that expensive. He makes a lot work, and he's low owned, so pretty easy leverage play for me in this spot, like 15, 20%. If he doesn't come through, that won't kill me. I'm going to 20 max tonight instead of 150. Why? I just like the tournament more. I'm really big on upside, so that's my plan as of right now. But so 20% is probably still going to be where I fall, but we'll see. For the Bucks, it looks like Javion Carter is going to be TBD. Pat Connaughton's doubtful. Grayson Allen's out. Nothing that really matters too much for me. Chris Middleton, not on the injury report, so he should be playing tonight. When this team is healthy, I'm not super interested in anyone else that's not called Giannis. Giannis looks like he's going to be one of the chalkier studs on this slate, and he doesn't really stand out for me, to be honest, in comparison to some of the other studs on this slate. So he's not a guy I will be forcing exposure to, but if he shows up in my lines, that's fine. But I'm not going to force it. John Morant, Dylan Brooks is still listed as TBD. I don't know why I just said John Morant's name like that. I don't know. Ignore that part. But Dylan Brooks is TBD. Jake LaRavia is TBD. A lot of the guys who've been out for a while are still out. Nothing too crazy there. When Brooks was out, we did see my guy Luke Kennard get the start in his spot. Had a pretty solid game too. I think Kennard's proving that he's that new guy that we should take more seriously if he does move into the starting lineup, or when someone else is out, he is starting to take on a decent amount of usage in these spots. So got to keep an eye out for it. But outside of him, and since we don't know if Brooks is going to play yet, not super excited about anyone outside of John Morant at 3% ownership. If he's going to be that low owned, 10% minimum for me tonight. I like the spot for him. The matchup against the Pelicans isn't great, but it's really just like the upside I'm chasing here with the low ownership in a game environment that I think should stay competitive. And the spread's pretty close. The total's still a decent total. Low owned John Morant. I'm going to play him. And it looks like we just got the news that Jaylen Brown was not on the injury report, so that automatically makes the Celtics a little bit less interesting. For the Pelicans, as you can see, they project pretty well, so that's a good starting point, but they're pretty healthy outside of that. We've been on the CJ McCollum train for a while. I don't believe he really came through for us yesterday, but I'm totally fine going right back to him here. Again, he's just too cheap. He's projecting very well. Sim model loves him. There's just a lot that makes sense for him here, so totally fine going right back to him once again. Brandon Ingram, I feel like I say this a lot, or at least I have been here recently. Ingram's kind of like your more steady producer. We kind of know what we're going to get from him. He has some upside, but I prefer CJ here. Giannis Valanciunas, I just haven't been playing as much of him as of late. Let me look. Let's see what the sim model thinks. 7,500. Okay, sim model likes him a little bit. I think he's a viable play, but he's not someone that I plan on forcing exposure to. Just because I'm already forcing exposure to Jakob Poeltl, who I see kind of similarly. So, and they're like close in price too. So I prefer to pay down on Poeltl a little bit more than Valanciunas tonight. But if the domination station puts him into some of my lines, I'm okay with that. But I'm really just prioritizing CJ McCollum. I expect to get some exposure to some of the other guys for the Pelicans, but the only guy I'm forcing exposure to is CJ McCollum here. For the Kings, you guys know I don't love picking on the Mavericks too much unless it's with a big. And Sabonis is a little bit too expensive for me here lately to really be taking too many shots on him. And so not really my favorite play. Fox's price was just way too cheap yesterday. He's a bit more appropriately priced now today at 8,200. I think Fox does bring some upside, but again, I like just looking at prices in general, not really based off of position. I think that there are other guys like Vucevic, like we talked about Dinwiddie a little bit, quickly, who I just prioritize a bit more than Fox on this slate. So just not a team I'm super excited about because of like the tough matchup against the Mavericks and their slow pace. But again, this is the highest game total on the slate, so more likely than not, I'll probably put like a 5% minimum on De'Aaron Fox to make sure he shows up in at least one of my lines. But not super excited about this game or that team, to be honest with you. Now, the Mavericks are a different story. The Mavericks have the golden matchup against the Kings. For those of you that don't know, the Kings don't play defense. They just try and score as many points as possible. And so for me, I have interest in both Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving here. Not really the rest of these team members because they don't really do anything here lately, and the team has been much better because they're not really trying to make the other guys get as much involved. But depending on where the ownership falls, I do want to make sure I have some Luka Doncic exposure no matter what. Um, that's just going to happen. I'm going to have at least like 5 to 10% Luka Doncic, and if he's more popular than that, then might be a few percentage points over that. Kyrie Irving, similar story. We'll have at least 5 to 10% exposure to him in a really soft matchup against the Kings. Remember, we will have value from this Wizards game and Knicks game as well, so we're not really desperate for value tonight. For the Lakers, LeBron James had a decent game last time out, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm not interested in LeBron James here. This is a pretty big must-win game. Not must-win, but a pretty big game for the Lakers tonight that they want to get that 5th seed or be 5th in the standings, so they need to win this game tonight. The problem here is that LeBron James, Anthony Davis, D'Angelo Russell, and Mo Bamba are all listed as TBD, and so we don't really know who's going to play here yet. Assuming everyone plays because this is a game they need to win, Anthony Davis, I'll be over the field on him, probably around like a 10 to 15% minimum if his ownership stays this low. But if some of these guys end up getting ruled out, then we'll have to look at guys like Dennis Schroeder, Austin Reeves, Davis, LeBron James, guys who would see a boost there. Whoever ends up starting potentially could also see a boost too. So keep an eye out for this game. It could get a little wild. But more likely than not, just playing more Anthony Davis here. And then for the Clippers, I have some interest in Kawhi Leonard as one of my stud pay-up options. I don't have that many on this slate. Like I have Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis, Ja Morant. It's kind of like my main top 3 pay-up options. And then Kawhi kind of falls into that 4th spot for me. And I guess you can count like Kawhi and maybe Siakam to kind of round out like 6 studs for me on this slate. But yeah, I like Kawhi. Soft matchup against the Lakers. I think he's interesting. I'm hoping he's relatively low owned. Don't have the ownership on him yet, but that will also determine a lot for me too. The sim model doesn't love Russell Westbrook too much, but I think he has some decent upside here, especially if Eric Gordon ends up getting ruled out. Eric Gordon for the Clippers is currently listed as questionable. Marcus Morris is questionable, and then Paul George has been out for a little while now. If Eric Gordon's out, we do see increasing usage to Russell Westbrook, and so Russell Westbrook is kind of already on my radar, kind of hoping Eric Gordon ends up getting ruled out, but we don't know. We'll have to wait and see here. Outside of that Westbrook interest, I am going to make sure I force some exposure to Kawhi Leonard once we get his ownership. So just to recap, the Knicks have some interesting potential news we need to keep an eye out for. I like the Raptors tonight. The Wizards are already nice value on the slate. We're still kind of waiting to see what will happen with the Hawks. Like Vucevic from the Bulls, like John Morant tonight, CJ McCollum for the Pelicans. Don't love the Kings, interested in Luka, and then taking shots on AD and Kawhi. And then kind of filling it in with the Wizards players. So yeah, that's pretty much this slate for me, everyone. I hope you all have a great night. Hope we have a lot to celebrate, just like last night was a good night. So let's try to keep it up. Have a good one. Peace out, y'all. See you later.